My closest friend came to me the day before my wedding, holding photos of my fiancée and himself inside my bedroom. With a smug grin, he said, "This is us tonight. While you were away, she was never really yours." I showed no reaction. But the next morning, he woke up to discover his entire life had collapsed. What followed would leave anyone stunned. I've often wondered what people truly mean when they talk about gut feelings. You hear it constantly, someone saying they sensed something was wrong, that something didn't feel right, yet they ignored it. Looking back, I realized my own instincts had been shouting at me for months leading up to my wedding. They kept warning me that Bianca and my best friend Raphael were becoming far too close, closer than what could ever be considered normal. But I was overwhelmed, consumed by my demanding job at a software consultancy, busy organizing the wedding Bianca had always dreamed of, busy trying to satisfy her incredibly demanding parents, Fernando and Lorena. Every now and then, I'd feel a sting of jealousy when I saw Bianca and Raphael laughing together in a corner, or when I noticed the way Raphael looked at her, lingering in a way that made me uncomfortable. Still, I didn't have the strength to confront those feelings. I was drained. Endless 12-hour workdays, constant calls, and the chaos of planning a large wedding left me with no energy to question anything. My parents, kind and supportive as they were, didn't have the financial means or the experience to handle the extravagant expectations Bianca's family imposed. So everything fell on me. I was managing countless responsibilities with barely a moment to breathe. Yet the warning signs were impossible to ignore. For example, Bianca and Raphael texted each other far more than what would be appropriate between a fiancé and a best friend. I would catch them smiling at their phones or laughing about private jokes they wouldn't share with me. Whenever I asked, "What's so funny?" they would brush it off with vague responses, just a meme or an inside joke you wouldn't get. I let it go, even when it bothered me. I had known Raphael since our first year in college. We lived in a cramped dorm room, pulled all-nighters studying, and always had each other's backs. He was like a brother to me. Maybe that's why I kept suppressing my doubts. I couldn't accept the idea that he would betray me like that. He was my best man, after all. I kept telling myself, he's loyal. He wouldn't do that. I wanted to believe it. Bianca, on the other hand, came from a much wealthier and more influential family. The Fernando name carried weight in their community. Her father was deeply involved in local politics, while her mother thrived in high society circles, attending galas and charity events with an air of superiority. Although they agreed to the marriage, they never let me forget that I was beneath them. Their attitude was subtle but constant. They reminded me that I was marrying into their world, not the other way around. This mindset extended into the wedding planning. They insisted on splitting the costs equally, but then pushed for an extravagant venue, luxurious decorations, a string quartet, and a guest list that grew to nearly 300 people. My parents, my father, a retired teacher, and my mother, a nurse nearing retirement, were forced to dip into their life savings just to keep up. Every time I tried to scale things back, Bianca's mother would shut me down. "We don't cut corners," she'd say, "with a Fernando family." Or, "What will people think? You want your bride to look cheap on her wedding day." Those words frustrated me deeply, but Bianca rarely defended me. Instead, she would dismiss my concerns. "Let them enjoy it," she'd say. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime event." Words that would later haunt me. About a week before the wedding, Raphael offered to take charge of hotel bookings for our out-of-town guests. "You've got too much going on," he said confidently, showing me confirmations on his phone. It reminded me of our college days, trusting him without hesitation. Grateful, I handed over the responsibility. The night before the wedding, both families gathered for the rehearsal dinner at the venue. Bianca, dressed in a near-white outfit, moved gracefully among her relatives, most of whom barely acknowledged me. My parents stood off to the side, clearly uncomfortable in such a lavish environment. Across the room, Raphael gave me reassuring gestures, as if everything was under control. After the rehearsal, we transitioned into a small celebration. The atmosphere was lively until I realized Bianca was gone. I tried calling her, but it went straight to voicemail. One of her bridesmaids casually mentioned that Bianca needed some air. I didn't think much of it at first. It was normal to feel overwhelmed before a wedding. But then Raphael disappeared too. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he had gone to grab drinks or take a call. But something inside me started to stir. A quiet voice urged me to look for them. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. The unease grew stronger. Out of curiosity, I checked social media. That's when I saw it. Bianca had briefly posted an Instagram story and deleted it almost immediately. But I caught a glimpse. It showed a hotel hallway with a distinct carpet pattern and part of room number. It definitely wasn't our venue. My chest tightened. That buried instinct came roaring back louder than ever. I had to know. I drove through the hotel district, my mind racing with excuses and possibilities. Maybe she was meeting a friend. Maybe Raphael was helping her with something. But deep down, I feared the truth. When I arrived at one of the upscale hotels, I spotted Raphael's car parked outside. That was all the confirmation I needed. I walked inside, took the elevator to the 8th floor, and began scanning the doors, trying to match the number I'd seen. Room 846. 847. My heart pounded with every step. The hallway was silent, the lighting harsh and unforgiving. It felt like I was walking straight into something I couldn't undo. But I wasn't ready to confront them. Not yet. Something inside me pushed me to gather undeniable proof, so I would never question my own sanity later. I moved carefully, placing my ear against the door of room 847. At first, there was silence. My heart pounded as I slowly tested the handle. To my surprise, the door wasn't fully secured from the inside, only locked by the electronic system. Then I remembered, earlier that month, Raphael had given me a master key card, saying it might be useful for wedding-related emergencies with guest rooms. At the time, it had seemed like a thoughtful gesture. Now, it felt almost ironic. I pulled the card from my pocket, slid it into the slot, and waited. A small green light appeared, followed by a soft click as the lock released. They had unknowingly handed me the very tool that would expose them. My stomach tightened. I slipped inside quietly. The room was dim, shadows stretching along the walls. Soft voices filled the space. Low, private, unmistakably close. My pulse surged. There on the bed, Bianca and Raphael were together, completely unaware of my presence. They were speaking softly, sharing quiet laughter that cut deeper than anything else. That was enough. A wave of anger rose so fast it almost overwhelmed me. My hands clenched instinctively. Part of me wanted to shout, to confront them immediately. But another part, colder, more controlled, held me back. Don't react. Get proof. The wedding was less than 12 hours away. A thought formed in my mind. Let them stand there, believing I knew nothing. Let the truth come out where it mattered most. With unsteady hands, I raised my phone and switched to video. I captured a few seconds, just enough to make everything undeniable. Their faces, their voices, the time and place. At one point, Raphael said something like, "No one will ever find out," followed by Bianca's quiet laugh. The moment spoke for itself. My whole body trembled, but I stayed silent. No confrontation. Not yet. I repeated that to myself again and again, holding on to it. Once I had what I needed, I stepped back carefully, making sure not to draw attention. I slipped out of the room as quietly as I had entered and closed the door behind me. Then I walked quickly down the hallway, my chest tight, my thoughts racing. Outside, the cold night air hit me hard. I stood there for a moment, tried to steady myself. Anger, disbelief, and betrayal all collided at once. My grip tightened around my phone, the proof of everything I had just witnessed. After a while, I got in my car and drove without direction until I found a small 24-hour diner. Sitting alone in a worn booth, I watched the footage again. There was no misunderstanding. No doubt. That was when the idea began to form. If they had humiliated me like this, they wouldn't be the only ones facing consequences. I didn't sleep that night. By early morning, I had gone through multiple cups of coffee, written down my thoughts, and carefully planned how to take control of the wedding schedule, especially access to the microphone and projector. The venue had high-end audiovisual equipment, originally meant to display a slideshow of our memories, childhood photos, moments from our relationship, everything we had built together. I had prepared it all myself, and I knew exactly how to change it. I hesitated for a moment, aware that what I was planning would expose something deeply personal. But then I thought about what had happened just hours before the wedding. The betrayal, the disrespect, the deliberate secrecy. To me, it felt justified. Every action has consequences. At 6:30 a.m., I left. I returned home to the apartment Bianca and I had shared for nearly a year. As expected, she wasn't there yet. If she believed I was still unaware, she was probably planning to slip back in quietly, maybe pretending she had spent the night at a friend's place. But when I stepped inside, everything looked exactly as we had left it. The living room lights were off, the bedroom perfectly arranged. I walked through the space that once felt like home. Now it felt unfamiliar. Her phone charger sat on the bedside table. The engagement ring box I had given her was still displayed on the dresser. A sharp wave of heartbreak hit me again, quickly followed by anger. She had thrown away everything we built for something so careless, with the one person I trusted most. I set my phone to vibrate and tried to rest for a while, but my thoughts refused to settle. Around 9 a.m., I finally heard the soft beep of the door unlocking. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to be asleep, waiting to see how she would act. As expected, her footsteps were quiet, cautious, like she didn't want to wake me or answer questions. She didn't even check the bedroom. Instead, she slipped into the guest room, likely trying to compose herself before facing me. About 30 minutes later, I got up, faking a yawn as if nothing was wrong. She was sitting at the kitchen island, hair brushed, dressed casually in a t-shirt and sweatpants. She gave me a tired smile. "Morning, babe," she said. "I stayed at a friend's place last night. Had too much to drink at the rehearsal dinner." I smiled back, the memory of the video flashing through my mind. "Must have been quite a night," I replied calmly. "Glad you're okay." I leaned in and gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, holding back every urge to confront her. Her eyes flickered, relief mixed with something else, maybe caution. She was trying to read me. I kept my expression neutral, giving her nothing to work with. I needed her to believe everything was fine, at least for a little longer. The wedding was scheduled for noon at the prestigious Wentworth Country Estate, chosen for its reputation and elegance. My parents arrived around 10 a.m., full of excitement, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. I greeted them with forced warmth. My mother smiled brightly in her pastel dress, while my father gave me a proud pat on the back. I told them I had some last-minute technical arrangements to handle. Bianca and her bridesmaids were busy getting ready, focusing on hair and makeup. Raphael was likely with the groomsmen, but I had no intention of seeing him. Let him believe everything was still under control. I made my way to the AV booth overlooking the ballroom. The technician, Tony, was checking the microphone and projector. "This is the groom, Daniel," he told his colleague. "He's got something extra to add, right?" "Yeah," I confirmed casually, pulling a flash drive from my pocket. I prepared a special video, something different from the usual slideshow. Tony smiled. "Hey, your day. Just tell me when to play it." "I'll give you a signal," I said, tapping the drive lightly. "I'll say roll it." The next hours passed quickly as I prepared for what would define this day. Every detail was deliberate. I adjusted my tie in the mirror, took a deep breath, and looked at my reflection. On the outside, I appeared calm. Inside, everything was chaos. The day itself was beautiful. Sunlight spread across the perfectly maintained gardens. Flowers were arranged with precision, filling the air with soft fragrances. Guests arrived dressed elegantly, smiling, ready to witness what they believed would be a joyful union. Bianca, somewhere nearby, was likely enjoying the moment, unaware of what was coming. Raphael, the man I once trusted like a brother, was probably just as confident. At 11:45, everything was ready. Guests took their seats. My parents sat in the front row beside Bianca's family, who looked proud, as if this wedding were another display of their status. The officiant nodded at me. It was time. I walked to the altar, composed, playing my role perfectly. Then the music shifted, and all eyes turned toward the entrance. Bianca appeared, radiant in her white gown, holding her bouquet, smiling brightly. Her father walked beside her, proud, and confident. She moved gracefully down the aisle, believing she was stepping into her future. When she reached me, she took my hand, smiling as if everything was perfect. The officiant began speaking about love and commitment. I listened, waiting. Then it was my turn. I took a breath and began. Today, I want to talk about love, the kind built on trust, respect, and honesty. Because without those, love isn't real. Bianca's expression shifted slightly, but I continued. I believed we had that. I believed we were building something strong. When you love someone, you give them everything, your trust, your future. The guests listened closely, expecting something heartfelt. But sometimes, I said, you realize that what you believed wasn't true. That behind the smiles, there's something else. Bianca's face changed, confusion turning into fear. I glanced toward the technician and gave a small nod. To make things clear, I'd like to share something. The lights dimmed. The screen behind us came to life. The room fell silent as the footage played, starting with the hotel hallway, then moving inside the room. Bianca and Raphael, unaware, their voices clearly audible. Shock spread through the crowd. Murmurs grew louder. Bianca's mother covered her mouth in disbelief. Her father sat frozen, anger building. My own parents looked stunned. Bianca stood there, pale, trembling, struggling to process what was happening. She reached for me, but I stepped back. This isn't what it looks like, she said weakly. But the video continued, leaving no room for doubt. The room erupted with reactions. Shock, whispers, disbelief. I looked at Raphael. He stood there, frozen, completely exposed. Congratulations to both of you, I said clearly. I hope it was worth it. Then I turned and walked away. The wedding was over. And this was only the beginning. The fallout was immediate. The recording of the ceremony began spreading quickly online. At first, it was shared quietly among guests. The story spread quickly through group chats, private messages, and endless conversations about the disastrous wedding. But like any shocking event online, it didn't stay contained for long. Within a day, someone uploaded a clip of the footage to social media with the caption, "Wedding of the Year." Groom exposes cheating fiancé during vows and cancels everything live. The video exploded. The moment Bianca and Raphael appeared on the large screen at the ceremony, caught together in that hotel room, was shared everywhere. The reactions were harsh. People who had never met us analyzed every detail as if they had witnessed it firsthand. Some called it something out of a movie. Others said she deserved the humiliation. Many condemned Raphael even more harshly. And surprisingly, a lot of them praised me. Soon, short videos, reenactments, and dramatic retellings began circulating. The story turned into entertainment. Bianca's name became associated with betrayal and public disgrace. While people online treated it like content, she tried to erase her presence entirely. Her accounts disappeared within hours, but it didn't stop anything. Comments flooded her old posts, and people even reached out to her workplace. That's when the real consequences began. Her family had always cared deeply about appearances. Her job was part of that image. But once her name became tied to a public scandal, it affected more than just her personal life. The following Monday, she was called into a meeting with company leadership. There was no warning, just a formal request to show up. She thought she might be able to explain, but the moment she saw their expressions, she understood. They told her that clients and partners had raised concerns. Her situation had become public enough to reflect poorly on the company. What she considered personal had crossed into professional territory. They made their decision clear. She was dismissed immediately. Just like that, she lost her job. My life, on the other hand, moved in a completely different direction. After leaving the wedding, I checked into a hotel. I didn't sleep. I spent the night going through messages, watching how quickly everything was spreading. Friends reached out with support. People I hadn't spoken to in years contacted me. Even strangers sent messages, some praising how I handled everything. After a few days, I made a decision. I needed distance from everything connected to that life. I packed my belongings and left the apartment Bianca and I had shared. I found a new place, somewhere that felt like a clean slate. I focused on my work again. Over time, I reconnected with friends I had unintentionally neglected. My routine changed. Before, my life revolved around maintaining a relationship built on false trust. Now, each day felt like progress towards something more stable. At work, my performance improved significantly. It didn't go unnoticed. A few weeks later, I was called into a meeting, this time for something positive. I was offered a promotion based on my recent dedication and results. I accepted immediately. What once felt like the end of everything became the beginning of something better. Meanwhile, Bianca struggled to move forward. Her name, once associated with success, had turned into something people recognized for entirely different reasons. She avoided public places, applied for new jobs, but nothing seemed to work. Her past followed her everywhere. Raphael disappeared completely. He removed himself from public view, left his job, and faded from everything we once knew. Rumors circulated, but I stopped paying attention. It didn't matter anymore. At one point, I believed what happened to me was a personal disaster, something unfair and humiliating. I kept asking why it had happened. But with time, I began to see it differently. Some endings are necessary. Some betrayals reveal truths you would have never faced otherwise. The months after the wedding were intense. I stayed busy, building a routine that gave me a sense of control again. Outwardly, I told myself I had moved on, but something lingered, not sadness exactly, and not regret. More like a quiet disbelief mixed with unresolved anger. Bianca had once been everything to me. Then suddenly, she became nothing more than a memory I tried not to revisit. But the past has a way of returning. Months later, a friend sent me a message with a link and a simple question. Have you seen this? When I opened it, I was caught off guard. Bianca had a child. There was no big announcement, just a simple post. No mention of a partner, no indication of who the father was. Just her holding a baby, trying to smile. Questions came to mind immediately. But from what I later learned, Raphael wasn't involved. He had already disappeared from her life completely. She was alone. The same person who once lived surrounded by attention and status was now trying to rebuild quietly, away from everything. When I saw that, I didn't feel what I expected. It wasn't love or longing, but it wasn't pure resentment either. It was something in between, distance, mixed with a quiet sense of closure. Time passed. The story that once spread everywhere faded, replaced by new distractions. Life continued. I moved forward. My career stabilized. My social life improved. The weight of the past slowly lifted. Until one day, unexpectedly, I saw her again. I was leaving a cafe when I noticed her sitting by the window. A stroller stood beside her. She looked different, tired, less put together than before. For a moment, I considered walking away. But something made me stop. I went back inside. She looked up and immediately froze. The surprise was clear on her face. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Hey," I said. She responded quietly, uncertain. The silence between us felt heavy. I sat down across from her. The baby made a small sound, and I glanced toward it. "He's my son," she said softly. I nodded, unsure what else to say. After a moment, she let out a faint, bitter laugh. "You won," she said. I frowned, not fully understanding. She gestured toward me, my appearance, my composure, and then toward herself. She spoke about everything she had lost. Her job, her reputation, her relationships. I listened. Eventually, she admitted that what she had done was wrong, that she deserved consequences, but she hadn't expected them to last so long. For the first time, I saw not just the person who betrayed me, but someone dealing with the aftermath of their choices. Something in me shifted. I had always believed I handled everything correctly. But now, seeing the lasting impact, I questioned whether I had gone too far. I told her I hadn't intended to destroy her life. She gave a small, empty laugh and replied that I had. I didn't argue. For the first time, I saw her as more than just the person who hurt me. I saw someone flawed, someone human. I told her I hoped she could rebuild her life. She seemed surprised, but she thanked me. After a few moments of silence, I stood up. I said goodbye and left. This time, it felt like the real ending. But instead of feeling victorious, I walked away with a quiet understanding that every choice carries consequences, And in the end, everyone pays a price for what they do.